And guess what? I'm going to do a review for you, and you're going to like it because I'm the greatest man ever lived. You understand me? You understand me? Because this is the movie Emporium review of The Running Man. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of The Running Man. This film is directed by Edgar Wright. We have a new incarnate of The Running Man, a Stephen King adaptation. This one is closer to the book and tells the story of Ben Richards, who is an individual that his daughter is sick. He is having trouble finding a job. So what does he do? He decides he's going to compete in some games with the network that is part of this society. Well, he gets kind of thrust because of Dan Killian, who's played by Josh Brolin, into a game called The Running Man, where you have to run for 30 days, or you have to basically hide from a bunch of hunters who are out to kill you. And if you make the 30 days, you of course get $1 billion new dollars. And so therefore he goes on the run and he's hunted by these hunters, and he comes along, some revolutionaries who are played by people like, Michael Cera and William H. Macy. And basically is a story of a man trying to provide for his daughter in a world that is very corrupt and very manipulated by the media, quote unquote manipulated. And it's the story of a man just trying to provide for his family in a world that doesn't really care about him, because that is the rich eats the poor type of scenario. So the 80s version of The Running Man, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, is, as I read the book, is way different than the book. It is almost not like the book at all, outside of that there's a competition called The Running Man. There's a guy named Damien Killian. There are some hunters. And, of course, there's Ben Richards, of course, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's it. That is the difference. That is the similarities from the book. And I think the movie was not very well liked by Stephen King. I enjoy it. It's very campy. It's of the 80s. It's directed by Paul Michael Glaser. It has very Arnold Schwarzenegger quips and stuff like that. But it has a lot of fun for what it's worth. It does have the gist of The Running Man as a corrupt media kind of manipulation system, and people are put out there to be killed. But that deals with somebody who is a convict, and this is somebody who's trying to provide for his family, and this is the only way they can do it. So it's a manipulation of the poor to do things that, it's like the Hunger Games in a lot of respects. But in this version, we of course have Edgar Wright, famous director at this point, and Glen Powell, pretty much the hottest thing going in acting right now as a actor. And I was really anticipating this movie because, once again, I literally just read the book for the first time. Like The Long Walk, I was really interested to see what the differences were between the movie and the book. And like I said, from watching the trailers, I could tell this was going to be closer to the book because of what it was trying to do and how it was trying to represent. And I think Edgar Wright and his writers were trying to be more faithful to the book, because I think he likes, Edgar Wright and his writers like the book more than the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, even though Arnold Schwarzenegger has his face on the new dollars in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool. But that leads into my honest review of this movie. And how do I feel about this adaptation just after reading the book not only a month ago? Well, I've decided that I am going to do a spoiler discussion on the ending of this movie, because though it has some similarities to, if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about, it has some similarities to the ending of this book. It actually veers off wildly from the book. So that's really interesting. But for the most part, it's pretty faithful. It's actually almost to the T of what the book does. So there is a level of good to that, and there's a level of bad to that, because Stephen King has he has a tendencies to kind of be very weird in his writing and be very kind of offbeat when he talks about his characters. And the way this story is structured, especially from the book, this movie follows that structure. So the way it edits between scenes, it is very kind of jarring, because it'll go from like one scene where Ben Richards is in a hotel, then it'll go to the scene with the Michael Cera character, and there'll be like no kind of introduction there. So it just kind of goes into that mix. It follows the book pretty closely. I mean, this is a character that has a daughter that's very sick, that has, goes on The Running Man. Dan Killian manipulates him. These hunters are out to get him, and Ben Richards becomes kind of an idol. And the things I like about this movie are the simple fact that they expanded upon the world this is something The Long Walk didn't do, where it expands upon the nature of the people and how they view these runners, these people, these convicts who the corporation that runs this Running Man end up manipulating through media and stuff like that. So the ideas of we see in Bobby T, who's played by Coleman Domingo, wasn't really in the book that much. He was like in the very beginning, and that's pretty much it. But here we get a lot more of him. They use Coleman Domingo to his strengths, which is really a lot of fun and very entertaining. Coleman Domingo's one of those actors that's doing God's work in a lot of respects in this movie. Dan Killian gets a lot more stuff to do in this movie, the Josh Brolin character, and I love to see the kind of the Starky, dangerous side to Josh Brolin that you don't get to see a lot, to be fairly honest. But they also kind of condense characters, like William H. Macy's character is a couple characters from the book kind of mixed together, and he's not in it for very long, but I like his character. And then you have people like Lee Pace, who play the main lead hunter, who plays McCone, and his character's even expanded. You get a little more depth to his character. He's a lot of fun to watch. You don't get to see his face very much, but it is a character that does a lot of neat stuff and a lot of interesting stuff. And I like the way this world works because they're able to sell like real world advertising to the people who buy, that sell to help, fund the movie, and use it in creative ways because it is about market manipulation. It is about a world where, you're sold through like, a Kardashians type show, which I love how Debbie Mazur is like the main lead person in that show. They sell you like Monster Energy drink and, fake bullets or fake guns. And they sell you liquid death, water, which I thought was kind of clever. The use of the way Edgar Wright is using like actual real world marketing is actually really clever and really works for this movie. So I give it a lot of credit. I know when Michael Cera tries to hand Ben Richards, the Glen Powell character, a monster, that is pure marketing for the movie. But it's kind of clever because it is kind of in touch with what the movie's doing. But I have to say that Glen Powell is amazing as Ben Richards. He's just very charismatic. He is good as the guy who's out there for his family. His wife is, working at a strip club as a waitress trying to provide. And you really feel the sadness and the heartbreak that they have because they can't provide for the kid because the kid's really sick. And we get a small scene with David Zayas from, of course, Dexter. There's a really potent scene right there. But the movie just, once again, it focuses on Ben Richards becoming like this icon and this kind of force that can be like the spark of a revolution. And you see him like how he survives through each action set piece, and the action set piece, because this is what Edgar Wright is well known for doing, are really kinetic and really fun and really go some like fun places. Like I said, it's a lot of what the book does, and it's actually photographed and like put on the screen to a very great degree. It has the flaws of the book, and when it comes to like the Emilia Jones character, who plays this woman who like comes near the end of the book, and I think she's actually toned down a lot from the book. I think her character is a little bit lesser. There's not really much. There's like her character arc is really weird in this movie compared to the book. And for a character that has to come in so late into the movie, I wish there had been a little bit more to her character. But it was starting to feel like they had to find a way to wrap up this movie really quickly, and the book does the same thing. And once again, that is unfortunately the negatives, the flaws for this movie that are similar to the book, where it has this structure of like each chapter is only like a page and a half, and this is like 91 and counting, 98 and counting, and stuff like that. And you really feel like that, especially if you read the book, when you get closer to the end of the movie and like the end of the book, it feels like Stephen King didn't know how to wrap. This is a very potent thing with Stephen King. He didn't know how to wrap up this book. I think what Edgar Wright and his writers did for the ending of this movie is structured really well. It gives a little more heft to the story. But once again, that scene, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you read the book, but that scene towards the end of the book, which I'll talk about in a spoiler discussion, is just kind of thrown together. It feels like very slapdash. And I think this movie, unfortunately, falters in that a little bit. But I think the idea of like what it's trying to say and what it's trying to do and the nature of manipulation of the media, because he has to record videos every day for 10 minutes. And when they use that against him, you really get a sense of like, that's a really interesting idea and a really interesting like look into what world, the idea of media manipulation has been around since like the early days of the newspaper and stuff like that. But the ending is just, it's a little rough, and it's like the book, it's a little rough, and it's just, I feel like that they could have gone for it, but they didn't, and it's a little bit of a struggle. But once again, Emilia Jones is only pretty much the weakest point of this movie, because everybody else is good and fun and entertaining, and I really like, how Ben Richards' story plays out. It's It's very different. It plays out way differently than the movie. That was not the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And yeah, it's a fun movie. Michael Cera is funny as heck in this movie, as he always is in an Edgar Wright movie. And that's my kind of non-spoiler take of The Running Man, the 2025 version that is more faithful to the book. So if you read the book, you know about the movie, which I think is pretty close to the book, to be fairly honest. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that is my take on The Running Man. I do appreciate you watching my review. Comments below. Have you read the book? Do you know it pretty well? If you have, let me know what you think of the movie. If you think it's pretty close, what is your overall take on the original Running Man, the Arnold Schwarzenegger film? So there you go. Anyways, with that said, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.